I was looking at you and talking, and then I was like trying to smell it, and I realized I was smelling the microphone and not the glass.
It doesn't smell sweet anymore.
It smells like ass.
It smells like saliva and breath. Bourbon. It smells like bourbon breath.
Yeah. Get this guy some juicy fruit. What's going on?
Yo, how we doing? Welcome into the show. I'm Ryan O'Leary.
And I'm Mike Zika.
And this is the Bourbon Playbook. Just another
podcast in the basement.
That's right. Excited to be back on the mic with you, my man. Gotta do a wellness check though, Zika. Gotta do a wellness check on you. I got people reaching out, people that you've never met reaching out to me. People actually listen to our show, which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
And but reaching out to me like, yo, how's Mike doing? Is Mike okay? And I'm like, guys, I haven't even texted him about it. I've been afraid to ask. But your Vikings, wow. What a brutal ending, and I haven't asked you about it yet. Are you okay, man? How you holding up? That was rough.
Rough, man. Yeah, that's an understatement. I mean, I would say I'm here, right? I'm alive.
Yeah, the sun's still coming up. It's negative like 14 degrees out here in Minnesota.
Seriously. Not really anywhere to go. But I appreciate you not putting on Amber Alert because it was a tough game, man. It was super tough. And obviously I'm kind of biting my tongue a little bit, tongue in cheek here for the past couple pod episodes.
Yeah, you haven't talked Vikings in a while. It's like almost like you were worried about this happening.
I was so confident, man. I really don't know what happened. I think the last two showings of the Vikings really kind of it was tough to watch, right? So
they didn't put up much of a fight. I think that they didn't have anything. Like they couldn't get anything going, especially on offense, obviously. But like there was no fight. There was like they didn't even get themselves back into it. You know, they're just kind of going through the motions. It was, you know, if I was a fan of that team, I feel for you and your brethren, right? the Vikes Nation. And I know a lot of Vikes fans now. That was tough. They just didn't like man up and go out there and like give a good effort. You know what I mean? It was just ugly.
It's fair to like walk away from a game being like, damn, you know, we lost, but wow, that was a great experience. It's so much fun to watch, right? Yeah. In both those games, I was just like, who are we? And like, what's going on?
Over at halftime.
Yeah.
Both
it's
games.
Unreal, you know? So very disappointing. But before we go on, I mean, do you mind if I just dedicate my pour of the week to this?
I figured. Let's pour it.
At this point.
Let's pour it.
Yeah, this is the last one. Yeah, for the listeners, again, I know I preach, and this one's kind of a little bit more of a Debbie Downer, but this week I'm going to pour it out for the Vikings heartbreak, or what my wife typically says is the world's smallest violin, speaking on this topic, right? So
is she tired of you talking Vikes?
She literally told me that today when she's like, what are you going to have for your pour of the week? And I'm like, probably talk Viking. She's like, oh, world's smallest violin. I'm like, yep, one last time, babe. Still a little left in the tank. So, yeah, man, I feel like nothing pairs well or better than a little frustration with some brown juice. So why not, right?
Yeah. I
came across an article this week that really tugged on my heartstrings, more in a bittersweet way. And I'll give you the quote real quick. Here goes. When asked about a career year that ended with his first Pro Bowl nod, Darnold wasn't looking for any flowers. Darnold said, at the end of the day, all that matters
is when you have a good season, what do you do in the playoffs? And we didn't get it done to then, and that's all that matters.
Who writes this anyway, huh? Who is this guy?
I think I know this author. Go on.
I'll give you a clue. He's the Sporting News Vikings analyst, a.k.a. locker room linguist.
Dude, my cheeks are so red at the moment.
Your boy, Ryan O'Leary.
I appreciate
it. Did you catch on right away?
The flowers, that line.
Right?
I remember writing that line. I was giving him credit, but honestly, I was giving him credit for like trying to take blame, and he did. In the postgame, he tried to take blame. I think the one thing that kind of rubbed me the wrong way watching his presser afterwards was he just didn't seem that broken up about it.
Right.
You know what I mean? He was just very matter of fact. He answered the question. He's like, yeah, I didn't play well enough, and it didn't work out for us, and I got to play better, and I held the ball too long, and I took 9 sacks, and I think a lot of them were on me, and there's that, but like he just wasn't broken up about it. And then they asked him about his future in Minnesota, which is very much in doubt now, as Troy Aikman said on the broadcast, and he was just like, yeah, not worried about that.
I mean, I'm not worried about that. That's in the past. Right now, I'm thinking about, like I said, what I could have done better today, and just really spending time with the guys in the locker room. That's really all I'm focused on right now, is just, because at the end of the day in the NFL, you only get one season with one team, with everyone together. And today wasn't our day.
There was just no passion there. There was just no, he wasn't beaten up. And I'm probably projecting on him. I'm sure he's upset that they lost the game and he played that poorly. But he didn't look it. He didn't sound it. And I think any Vikings fans watching that were probably like, dude, get the hell off my team. And that's how I would feel too.
And as a fan, right? Same thing. And it's interesting you saying that, and obviously me living through it and experiencing it for 34 years now. But I'd be interested in your take. Obviously being a Pats fan for too long. I hate to say it, the GOAT. I'll give it to you. I'll let you run with it this time. But I mean, like, listening to Sam Darnold covering the Vikes, and Ryan is now pulling up a shirt, and he has a GOAT number 12 T-shirt on under his Bourbon Playbook sweatshirt.
Which you did not know.
I did not. That is embarrassing.
Brady. Okay, go on.
The GOAT T. That's ridiculous. Coming from like a Pats fan, right? The GOAT. What's kind of like the dialogue or like that? I don't know, just kind of the vibe of Sam Darnold versus Tom Brady after he lost the game, especially a playoff game. You know what I mean? Like, walk me through that.
First of all, the presser would last like 1 minute. You better get your question in. And Brady would look like his dog just died. No, he was just like, he was a psycho about winning.
They're all pretty disappointing. I mean, losing sucks, but that's part of you. You show up and you try to win, and sometimes you lose, and that's the way it goes.
He looked like the worst thing just happened. And as a fan watching that, you almost feel like you're in it with him. You're like, I'm devastated, but look at my quarterback. He's devastated too, right? And right. I did not get that emotion watching Sam Darnold. And I want to get Darnold in trouble for something he didn't really do. You know what I mean? Like, right. I'm sure, who knows what was going on when he wasn't in front of a camera and a microphone. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure he's pretty upset. He played horrible. The last 2 weeks, especially in that playoff game. That was terrible. Didn't give his team any chance. I mean, fumble for a touchdown, 9 sacks. Like, they never had a chance with him playing quarterback in that game. They didn't. And he was fantastic all season. I don't know what happened. You would think he'd be a little bit more beaten up about it. So I'm not a Vikings fan, but watching it, I was like,
yeah.
Like, if I was a Vikes fan, I would be pretty pissed at this guy. Like, he just did not. It was too matter of fact.
100%, man. Crazy. And you know what I love though? My last little comment on this is KOC, just like as a coach, like as a human being, I think he's a pretty good dude, right? Seems to be pretty cool. Complete opposite of Diddy. But then at the same time, like, this man, he's very like relaxed and calm demeanor, and he's very he leads with gratitude, I think, and he takes 100% complete ownership, especially in the press conference, but also gives so much to his players, like when it comes to like accolades and like, high five. He's truly a player's coach, which I feel like I love, and I've always loved that kind of coach. But at the same time, you see this dude just stomping down the sidelines, barking up the tree of all these refs, dropping F-bombs. But it's still at a respectable level where it's like he loses his cool, but he's like, all right, that guy's got my back too. Like, that was a bullshit call. You know what I mean? Like, he's not afraid to get his hands a little dirty once in a while. So word out to KOC this week. Why not?
I'm going to keep the theme going because typically my personal pours are, a giant vent session about me and my parenting failures, right? Yeah. That's what I've been going on. It's diaper this, that story about Mike Tyson beat me up in the stall. You know what I mean?
The airport.
Yeah. It's just me and my 3-year-old, but I'm going to stick with the theme. I'm going to talk about my team. You mentioned it, a Patriots fan. I don't know if a lot of people who have listened even remember that I'm a Pats fan, because I've really kept that under the wraps.
Yeah, it hasn't been the best season, man.
The Pats have been
not a bad idea.
They've been kind of crappy lately. But this week, on the morning that your Vikings shit the bed, Monday morning, the Patriots introduced a new head coach. I have to pour this one out to my guy, my owner, Robert Kraft, owner of the New England Patriots, who I was worried was like at the point of his life, he's in his 80s, I think. I was kind of worried he was like sitting on a bench somewhere just like feeding the birds. You know what I mean? Like I just was worried that like, Robert, are you still there? You know, you still with us?
Like literally Forrest Gump in the movie, like just same IQ level. Like, are you all there?
Exactly. Like, are you still with us, Robert? Yeah. Because last year you moved on from the greatest head coach in NFL history in Bill Belichick. And I agree. It was time. You know, those last years of Belichick were brutal too. But you told us, you sat there at the podium and you told us, I got the next guy. It's Gerard Mayo.
Jared, let's go.
Your guy Jared. Your guy Jared. Gerard's the guy. And you were so sure about it, Robert, that you literally baked into his contract that he would be Belichick's successor years prior. So they didn't even do there was no search. There was no interviews.
Really?
When Belichick was let go, or they mutually parted ways, whatever the hell they said it was, he was fired. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
They automatically promoted Gerard Mayo. Like there was no interviews, there was no Rooney Rule, there was nothing. It was just Mayo was the coach, and Kraft, he got it approved by the league beforehand. That was it. There was no process, right? Mayo was the guy, and I think we all know watching the Patriots this year, it was an absolute disaster. Mayo was not ready. He had no idea what he was doing. And how could he? He was never a coordinator before. So like how would he know? So for Robert Kraft, I mean, Mayo was fired like 90 minutes after their last game. Like they didn't even wait till Monday. Usually you wait till the Monday after the regular season for all the firings.
Yeah.
They fired him 90 minutes after the game. They got off the field. He did his press conference, gets back to his office, and he's like, yo, you're fired. You're gone.
They just had a box on the office.
It's like, you're done. I mean, so Robert, you do have a pulse. Like you're still with us, right? Like that couldn't have been easy, because boy, do you look like a jackass for this whole thing, right? Like, not to mention the new head coach of the Patriots now, Mike Vrabel, who they brought in, they hired. Thank God. Yeah, Mike Vrabel, my guy. Like, I'm so fired up about that, and I'll get into why. But Vrabel last year, when they moved on from Belichick, got fired by Tennessee. He was available. He was the head coach of the Titans, got fired. He was out there. I'm like, oh my God, we're going to have Mike Vrabel as our head coach. This is the perfect successor to Belichick. If you could like draw it up. Yeah, if you could draw it up, it's Vrabel. Like won 3 Super Bowls, played for Belichick, but also is a huge ball buster and basically threw up the middle finger to Bill when he was done playing and said, I'm not going to coach for you, Bill, and be like one of your bobos. I'm going to do my own thing. He went back to Ohio State. He came back to the NFL, was hired by the Titans, and then he went and started beating the Patriots and Brady from the other sideline. He's just badass. Like, I love Vrabel.
Sick.
Never mind the fact that he was like unbelievable linebacker who like randomly played tight end and like would catch touchdowns from Brady all the time. It was just like, it was so fucking awesome, man.
And not just like catch touchdowns, like plural catch touchdowns.
Oh,
like how many did he catch?
Easily double digits. I think it was over 10, right? We looked it up. We were looking it up.
12.
He caught 12 touchdowns.
10 touchdowns from Brady, 2 from other teams.
He was part of that.
But that's nuts, dude.
In the heyday.
Like Travis Hunter before the prime.
Seriously.
You know what I mean?
He was a linebacker who would just, I mean, you look at Vrabel too when he was playing. He didn't seem like he was all that. Like he would be like, this guy's not much of an athlete. And then he just balls out. And he randomly comes on offense in the goal line package and just catches touchdowns. The defense never would catch on that Brady's going to throw it to him. He always did. He always caught it. It was fun. I can't remember Vrabel ever dropping a ball when he came in on offense. It was
crazy.
It was the best. So, yeah, the Patriots obviously should have hired Vrabel last year. The fact that they were able to do it this season after they literally fucked it all up and just cover their tracks and say, no, we're gonna move on from Mayo. I'm talking about Robert Kraft again. As bad as that looks, after you tried to sell Patriots fans on, here's the guy, I believe in the guy, and here's my plan, and we had this plan, and we've identified the guy, and here we go. We're off and running. And then you bail on it after one season, barely after the last game. I mean, you're lucky that Vrabel was available, but the fact that he was and you were able to go get him, I just want to play a little sound for you. I have it here on the board for you.
Let's hear it. Hit me.
Like, this is what you get with Mike Vrabel.
Because it sucks to lose, Gentry.
Trey, ever need to show you anything?
Did you have another thought, or no? I'm just curious.
Well,
It fucking sucks.
Yeah, Gentry. It fucking sucks to lose, Gentry. It's like, yeah, this is how I want. That's what I want from Sam Darnold.
Right.
That's what I want from Sam Darnold. It's like, hey, Sam, what happened? How you feel? It's like
Losing. Awful.
losing, awful. Like a caveman said it. Losing, awful. That fucking sucks. Like, that's what I want.
Right.
From my quarterback, from my coach. And the fact that I have that guy now as the dude for my team, I couldn't be more ecstatic, man. I hope Patriots fans are too. I've gone back and forth with my buddies a lot. Everyone's like, I don't know, man. I don't know if Vrabel's the right guy. We should have got that Ben Johnson from the Detroit Lions. That guy looks pretty good. Whoever the hell, like 35, 36-year-old Ben Johnson is, you know what I mean? Like, he's a hell of a coach. I mean, that Lions offense is amazing. But in a vacuum, is Ben Johnson a better coach than Vrabel? Maybe. But for the New England Patriots, it's Vrabel. It's Vrabel. Why is Vrabel the guy?
Losing. Awful.
Losing. Awful. That's exactly right. Right. Losing.
Caveman.
Awful. Yeah. It's all you need. Losing. Awful. That's all I want to hear from my coach. So,
and I kind of like how
speaking into existence.
Exactly, man. And I kind of like how he's definitely that coach that wears his emotions on his sleeve a little bit. And I think the fans like it, right? Like, they like to see those emotions. Like, Bill Belichick, love your guy, but like kind of sucks in press conferences, right?
They were entertaining for a time until they stopped winning.
Right.
Then they weren't so entertaining anymore.
But seeing a guy like Vrabel, hearing him, I guess, like on the pod here for I think I actually do remember that interview because it was all over SportsCenter. But it definitely reminds me of a Dan Campbell, again, another player's coach, but some guy that's like, I'm ready to go to battle. You want me to get on the field? Give me some pads. Let's go. Let's break some necks.
He'll do that in practice. He'll put on the pads. I've seen plenty of that on going around social as well. So pour it out for Kraft. He woke up. Again, I don't know who did it, who woke him up. If it was a gal or what it was, but
probably takes a couple at his age.
Pour it out for Robert.
Yeah.
Because he woke up and got it done, and now we have a real coach and a real football team again. So, cheers.
Cheers, Robbie.
All right. Bourbon of the week, Zika. Just to be fully transparent with the listeners, you gave me some options. This is the first time you've ever done that. Usually you surprise me. I fully trust you in your judgment. You gave me some options, and I said, ooh, let's do this because this is one that I would never think to grab. I think very similar to Wild Turkey. Like I have a built-in bias for no reason against this whiskey, bourbon, whatever it is. Technically a bourbon, right? You're going to explain that.
It's a whiskey.
It's technically a whiskey, but we're calling it a bourbon.
Yes.
Okay.
We'll get into that.
Okay. We're teasing now.
Tease. The Tennessee whiskey.
The Tennessee whiskey. What's our bottle of the week?
It is Jack Daniel's Bonded.
JD.
JD, Turk wants to ask you something, and it would mean a lot to the both of us if you said yes.
Oh my God, would I have a threesome with Turk and Carla? Well, it's certainly flattering, and I don't think they'd tell anyone.
Will you be my best man? Huh? I mean, yeah! Of course! Hell yeah, you will! Thank you so much! Yeah!
JD. All right, so today we're diving into, I think, an underrated bottle. Again, per the specific category that we're talking about, right? I just think this is often an overlooked gem on the shelf that is a fantastic pour without breaking the bank, right? Like, this is literally the first bourbon that I ever vomited on.
I think a lot of people would say that, like, college, Jack and Cokes, like.
Absolutely. And I didn't revisit it until, from almost 17, 18 until about 26, 27. I literally saw it on the shelf and literally, gave it one of those. But yeah, today we're talking about Jack Daniel's Bonded. Now I know all of our listeners out there, take a deep breath. This is a bourbon podcast. And yes, Jack Daniel's is technically a Tennessee whiskey, okay? But it meets all the legal criteria to be a bourbon. And I'll just give you a quick rundown, right? So to be a bourbon, right, the mash bill has to be made of at least 51% corn, along with barley and rye, check. Aging, aged in a new charred oaked American barrel, check. No additives, no coloring, no flavor additives, check. Distillation and bottling must be distilled under 160 proof and bottled at least 80 proof, check. And what makes it different is Lincoln County, their process, right? We're talking in Tennessee. Jack Daniel's basically goes through this unique process of charcoal mellowing their bourbon. So they filter it through sugar maple charcoal, which we'll talk about in a sec, before aging. So this defines it as a Tennessee whiskey. So it's a very distinct category recognized by U.S. law, right? So in short, Jack Daniel's Bonded is a Tennessee whiskey that could legally be labeled as a bourbon, but the distillation and the distillery itself proudly identifies it as a Tennessee whiskey because of the unique production process, right? So
these guys are just pompous assholes.
Pompous is a great word. I was looking for that. That's exactly right.
They're just like, we're too good to be called a bourbon.
Exactly.
We're a Tennessee whiskey.
We're distinguished.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Pinkies up, boys.
All right. So we're not cheating by covering this on the podcast, in your opinion?
I don't think so. And if you have a problem with that, post a comment.
My fault, guys. I picked it.
Yeah. Blame Ryan. When in doubt.
But didn't you told me they won, and I'm sure you'll get into this, but you told me they won some type of award, and I figured that was like they won an award against other bourbons.
Yeah, they did actually win awards. So Jack Daniel's Bonded Tennessee Whiskey, they actually took the #1 spot of Whiskey of the Year in Whiskey Advocate's list for one of the most new and exciting whiskeys, right? And when I say new, it's technically one of the oldest, but I just think whatever they have going on over there right now, it's not what is in your grandfather's basement. Let's put it that way, right?
Yeah.
And just remember, we're distinguishing, this is Jack Daniel's Bonded versus the Jack Daniel's that you see on a shelf on a handle that's actually not too much less expensive, but it still has a little different, unique taste. Some of the same characteristics in this Bonded bottle, but we're not covering the bottle that's just sitting on your shelf, the #7 that you typically see, right?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, that makes sense. The #7 is now visually in my head. So is it part of their them being pompous a-holes, like I said earlier? Is that why they call it Bonded and not we've covered Bottled and Bond, but they refuse to put Bottled and Bond or bourbon on their bottle?
Exactly. Like,
okay, so that's what we're talking about here.
The story continues, right? So they labeled it Bonded, but to be clear, it's technically bottled in bond, right? Just like the rest of them, as we've covered in previous episodes. And what that means, again, produced from a single distillery, distillation in a single year, so typically January through June or July through December, aged in a federally bonded warehouse for at least 4 years, and then finally bottled at 100 proof. So that's what covers this bottle of Bonded, aka Jack Daniel's Bottled in Bond.
Tennessee bourbon whiskey.
Tennessee bourbon whiskey. Exactly.
Okay.
But enough about that, Ryan. Are you ready to take a stroll down memory lane?
Loving it, man. This is my favorite part. Let's get to the history.
Me too. I always love to just like understand who, like, is Jack Daniel? Is that like some pseudonym, or is it like actually the guy, right?
Who's Jack?
Who is Jack? So Jack is actually Jasper Newton, aka Jack Daniel.
He's already less cool.
Exactly, Jasper. Like, good call on Jack. To all of our listeners that are named Jasper, I apologize.
You're probably a bourbon drinker if you're named Jasper.
100%. Jasper Newton Daniel was born on 1850 in Lynchburg, Tennessee. So he was the youngest of 10 children, orphaned at a young age. So kind of the interesting part here is that he went on to live with a gentleman named Dan Call. He was a local preacher and distiller, which back in the day, could you imagine that?
That's a great combo.
You know what I mean? Like growing up these days, you know, with your priest is like, all right, here's the body of Christ. Here's some wine. Oh, hey, by the way, this line is actually for brown juice. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like when you go get communion, that'd be so funny.
It's perfect.
But anyway, so this gentleman named Dan Call, the preacher and / distiller on the side, introduced him to the art of making whiskey. So at 7 years old, Jack began learning how to distill whiskey. Again, another very young adolescent, not even an adolescent yet. I think that's 9 through 16 or something.
Adolescent, I think, is closer to teen years. He's 7.
7 years old. I still had those shoes that had like the strap over. I couldn't even tie my shoes. You know what I mean?
He was probably still going by Jasper then.
Literally, yeah. Anyway, so another kind of cool fact is nearest green. So I'm going to dive into something, and maybe some of you are already kind of putting the puzzle together here, but Jack was taught distilling by Nathan Nearest Green, an enslaved man who worked as a distiller on Call's farm. So again, Dan Call, the local preacher, had a slave named Nathan Green, or AKA Uncle Nearest, who worked on his farm. And Green actually later on became the first distiller, leaving his long-lasting legacy with Jack Daniels. So Call actually sold the distillery to Jack Daniels when he was 13 years old. And I definitely Googled this multiple times because that just doesn't make sense to me, right? Like, what are you trading for chickens? Like, what do you have at age 13 where you can buy a distillery, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, he got, and the reason that Dan Call sold this to him is he got caught up in the social and political campaign of this temperance movement, right? The belief that alcohol abuse led to social problems and domestic violence, poverty, moral decline, etc., right?
Probably still holds up today.
Yeah.
This is in the 1800s.
But we just get away with it, right?
Yeah.
And Call had to choose between basically his ministry and the whiskey business. Obviously made the wrong decision.
Yeah, definitely go to the whiskey business. Would have been a rich man.
What a goofball. So that's how everything took off. So technically, when he did buy the distillery when he was 13, he obviously had a lot of help from this Nearest, Uncle Nearest, or Nathan Green, the enslaved man working on the distillery. So he was kind of the one that was leading and driving the ship, but teaching him, Jack Daniels, everything along the way, right? And fun fact for all of our listeners out there that are bourbon drinkers and kind of walk past the shelf and have seen this like I have, but never put the puzzle together. Here's the final piece. So there's a whiskey named in honor of Nearest Green, Uncle Nearest Premium Whiskey, which celebrates the first known African-American distiller, which is super cool. So Uncle Nearest was established in 2017 to honor Nearest Green's legacy. So it's like a $60 price point at Total Wine. You can check it out. I've personally never had it, but it kind of makes me want to buy a bottle now. So kind of understanding the history. So kind of fast forwarding a little bit to the end of Mr. Daniels' life. He reportedly died from complications of blood poisoning in 1911 at the age of 61 after kicking a safe, which sounds absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
So the injury led to an infection, which eventually turns into blood poisoning or sepsis, right? So the incident is often used as the cautionary tale of not letting your anger get the better of you.
Yeah. So what was this? He kicked something? What did he kick again?
Kicked the safe. He forgot the code.
Oh, he just pissed and he kicked it and got a cut on his foot and it got infected.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah, I guess I can see that. When you're in your 60s, you have an untreated wound, not going to see your doctor.
You're not even eating. You're just drinking brown juice all day. Yeah. You know what I mean? And
either that or they're like, couldn't get to the doctor or whatever. I don't know. It's 1911.
Yeah.
Like how do you even get to the doctor back then? Probably
horse and buggy.
Not a lot of I'm sure there were automobiles then, but not a lot. Hard to get to your nearest ER. Now we have them on like every exit. You have like a urgent care.
Yeah.
If you kick a safe, you can get treatment pretty quickly now. But
go online, take a picture, submit it, and get like a prescription delivered to you by drone at this point,
You remember ever kicking or punching something and having a serious injury from it?
Only maybe basketball when I miss a shot and like go to the wall and you punch the wall and you're like, oh shit. Like I just, jacked up my pinky.
I think one of the worst injuries I ever had in this, I've broken my leg. I've had some pretty nasty ones. I had a torn hamstring playing basketball that was brutal. That was worse pain than breaking my leg was the muscle
hamstrings.
Injury. Yeah.
No joke.
But when I was a kid, I was walking around on the back deck. We had like a wooden back deck, barefoot. I was out there.
Slippery.
And there's a little rusty nail sticking up.
Ooh.
And I was like, I don't know if I was I slid my feet a little bit when I walked.
Yep.
Right? Just being lazy. And I slid my foot on a nail and ripped open the bottom of my foot. And I had to go to the doctor and get that stitched up on the bottom of my foot, Zika. So safe to say in 1911, I would have been dead.
Yeah.
I would have been Jasper. I would have been
straight up hashtag sepsis. Yeah.
I would have been toast with that injury.
Oh,
it was brutal. They had to numb it by like putting shots in the bottom of my foot.
Oh, I'm like
getting
tingly thinking about that.
A little queasy on that one. Yeah, sorry to do that to you, but
it's all right.
That was probably, and it wasn't like I was even, goofing off or like I wasn't trying to kick anything.
Yeah,
like Jack Daniels was. That was just a bad accident. But I'd be toast too at this time. I can see how he didn't make it through.
R.I.P. man. And to continue the story, so Jack Daniels, he didn't have any wife or kids, so he actually left the company to his nephew, Lem Motlow, whose name actually still appears on the Jack Daniels bottles today if you look at them, as tribute to the actual role that he played in the brand's history and legacy. He actually became like a state senator at some point, was a big lobbyist for Prohibition, and kind of bringing it back to the state of Tennessee. So you'll often see the phrase "made under the supervision of Lem Motlow, proprietor," which is kind of cool. Some additional grandpa facts for you here, so buckle up. Oldest registered distillery. Now, I know I've said that a couple times, but this one is an actual registered distillery, right? So Lynchburg, Tennessee is the birthplace to Jack Daniels, registered in 1866, making it the oldest on U.S. record. So while there are other distilleries that trace back further, such as like Maker's Mark and Buffalo Trace that I know we've talked about, maybe not Maker's Mark yet, but definitely Buffalo Trace, they were not formally registered as early as Jack Daniels was, right? So that's the key distinction there. A couple interesting things just about Jack Daniels. So you always see that Jack Daniels number 7, right?
Right.
It's a complete mystery. Like nobody knows why.
I was going to say, I never knew.
Right? Like you just see it and you're like, oh, is it, steel toe number 7? Like, is it a specific type of, what is it? People say that, when he died, he never told anybody, right? So it could be a recipe number, warehouse number, lucky number 7, registration number, shipping code for a railroad or shipping company. No one ever knows, right? He took that secret to the grave.
So you don't even know. Your research for the pod, you don't even know.
Hours, man. Nothing.
Damn.
Nothing. And another kind of twist here has to do with the actual Tennessee county that it's located is a dry county, which is absolutely hilarious to me. So Moore County, which is in Lynchburg, Tennessee, is dry. So no in-store bottle sales, no Quick Trip gas stations, no liquor stores, nothing.
You can't purchase alcohol in this county.
Correct.
So that's probably multiple towns.
Correct. And it's hilarious to me. So a special exception obviously allows limited bottle purchases at the actual distillery, right? The Jack Daniel's distillery. But out of the 95 counties of Tennessee, there's one specific county that still hasn't passed the right to have it be a
wet.
Wet? I was thinking like opposite county. Of dry. A wet county.
Yeah. So so this shit has been in place since like the early 1900s or whatever. And in 2025, you still can't fucking go to Moore County and buy a beer.
Exactly.
That is insane. And that's where they distill Jack Daniels?
Correct.
In that county.
Yeah. You can't even go and get a neat pour of Peach Crown Royal, bro.
Yeah, you can't get the Crown Peach.
Sad day.
No.
Sad day.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 1 out of the 95 counties, and this county happens to be the only dry one, which happens to be the largest distiller of Tennessee whiskey in the entire U.S., which is crazy because Tennessee passed their prohibition laws in 1910, which remained in effect after the 18th Amendment was repealed in 1933. And still to this day, like you said, 2025, you still can't roll up to a bar, a liquor store, or a gas station and get a sixer, not even malt liquor or Bird Dog.
That rule, that law, whatever you want to call it, that totally revolves around JD and their thing over there, that Jack Daniels thing, right? They're like, no, we're not going to repeal this one, for no reason. This is our thing.
Yep.
We're the oldest this, we're the Tennessee whiskey that. We're like, so it all ties into what we were talking about earlier, right? They just want this to be their thing. So yeah, Moore County, they're never going to change that. It's never going to be wet. It's going to be dry.
Straight up prestige worldwide,
That's something, man.
It's ridiculous. And just to kind of wrap up the history side here, how they survived Prohibition. I know I mentioned the nephew Lem. So Tennessee outlawed liquor early in 1910, right? So it forced Jack Daniels to cease their operations. Lem, the nephew, did actually move it to Alabama and St. Louis. And once Prohibition became federal law in 1920, the distillery ceased operations entirely, right, until it was repealed in 1933. So after that Prohibition was repealed, then Lem ended up reviving the distillery in the original home place of Lynchburg, Tennessee, to where it still stands today. So
got to skirt Prohibition, man. You got to do it somehow.
Yeah, they clearly didn't have any doctors in the family.
Yeah, there was no medicinal stuff going on.
Oh man, no medicinal.
They're not going to lower themselves to that. They're not. No, this is not medicine.
They're too good. We'll take a couple good years off, kick back and relax.
Yep. No, they weren't lowering themselves. Respect to that, actually.
A couple other things about just the actual process in general. Of again, we're kind of covering like a Tennessee whiskey, but it's bourbon at the same time, right? But what makes them sit on their high horse and makes their distillation process so unique is the charcoal mellowing. So Jack Daniels uses the Lincoln County process is what they call it. So it's a slow filtering process with the whiskey through a 10-foot, basically like vat of sugar maple charcoal for a very smooth and kind of mellow flavor. And outside of that, they also use limestone spring water. So it's made with pure iron-free water, natural cave spring around the grounds of Lynchburg, Tennessee. Another interesting fact is their sour mash method, which we're covering right now, Jack Daniel's Bonded, but they do have a Jack Daniel's sour mash that I think is even better than this for like $2 more price point, which we didn't touch on. The price point here, again, 100 proof here, bottle and bond. And we're looking for a 7.5, right around that kind of 30, 35, maybe 40 MSRP. And it's on the shelf everywhere. You can get it I got this at Costco, right? So this is the liter bottle. I think it was like $55. Other than that, handcrafted barrels as well is something that Jack Daniels makes on their own, actually. So they toast them and char them to perfection. And then that kind of contributes to the whiskey's overall flavor and color. And then finally, we have the aging, right? Seasonal aging. The whiskey is aged in non-climate controlled warehouses, kind of allowing that Tennessee, weather to really enhance that natural flavor. So that's a little rundown of everything that you'd want to know and more about Jack Daniels.
Yeah, that was thorough.
That said, tasting notes.
Pop this bottle.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
All right, on the nose, what do we got? What are you hitting, Ryan?
Definitely oaky, right? There's an oak in there, but there's some type of fruit as well. It's nice.
I just get a ton of vanilla. Like, to me, it's like a vanilla bomb almost.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out if that was like vanilla or what the hell that was. There is a very sweetness. There's like a sweet smell.
Very sweet.
Like a sweet fruit,
Yeah, I definitely get like a little bit of caramel.
There's a lot going on in this.
Caramel, vanilla, oak, kind of that toasted oak, almost like a spice. And I know they naturally have a little bit of spice to these.
If you kind of hover your nose and breathe in, it smells like a banana. I think that's like the sweet fruit I'm getting.
I think you just unlocked another milestone, my friend. That's pretty good. I'm impressed, man. I get that too, but I didn't get it right away until you
got to breathe it in.
Yeah. It's almost like a banana that's not quite
a rotten banana.
Yeah, I was just gonna say not quite rot,
but
fully rotted.
I got that smell pretty early. It was like there's some type of fruity smell.
Yeah,
I don't think I've ever smelled banana in a bourbon before.
That's really interesting. You say that. Yeah,
like get that right.
Overripe banana for sure.
Yeah,
that's really good, man. I'm impressed. You got that before I did.
Kentucky Chew.
Chew it. Let's give her the swish, boys.
All right. This is something as a teenager I would have been a little afraid to do. Like,
I know.
Kentucky Chew some Jack Daniels.
Yeah.
That would have been pretty aggressive back then.
It's going to chew it down and chew it right back up.
And I'm pretty sure ever since I was a teenager drinking Jack and Coke, I've never poured a glass of Jack Daniels just to sip on and like taste. So
first bourbon I ever yacked on right here. Here goes nothing.
Don't yak again.
No.
Whew. That's long.
Yeah. For like again, it is 100 proof, but for the price point, I just think there's too many people overlook this. Like, again, this isn't the Jack Daniels that you see on the bottom of the shelf, but it's literally one step up and like $5 more, right? And I think it's worth snagging a bottle. A 7.5 for like 30, $35. Like, come on, man.
There's a lot going on in this.
Yeah.
I'm getting a lot of oak, a lot of spice.
It's so sweet to me. Like, I just get a ton of vanilla and even a little bit of that banana bread on the nose. It's almost a mix between that and I almost get some like brown sugar notes. I know that's something that I've always kind of got with this. That could be the toasted oak that I'm tasting, but it's definitely like on the front of my tongue. It's sweet, and then on the sides and the back, a lot of baking spice or a lot of that rye is really showing through. Even though there's a little bit of rye in there,
there's a lot of spice going on.
That's funny. I was looking at you and talking, and then I was like trying to smell it, and I realized I was smelling the microphone and not the glass.
It doesn't smell sweet anymore.
It smells like ass.
It smells like saliva and breath. Bourbon. It smells like bourbon breath.
Yeah. Get this guy some juicy fruit. What's going on? But overall, I think it's a fantastic pour. On the palate, on the front end, I'm getting very sweet vanilla. Then it hits you with that oak. To me, I get a little toasted oak, almost like that brown sugar caramel. And then on the back of my tongue, like it's still there. From 10 seconds ago, taking my swig, that it's the baking spices and it's the rye that's really showing through.
Yeah,
with like a long warm finish.
You'd expect this kind of finish in like a much higher proof bourbon.
Yeah.
So that's a feather in JD's cap, I think.
Absolutely. So yeah, looking at the mash bill, they use their Jack Daniels, of course, has a classic recipe, right?
80% corn. That sounds familiar.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So 80% corn, 12% malted barley, and 8% rye. And that's the sweet and robust flavor, right? So I'm surprised that it has so much spice on the finish. It's super sweet, but it goes even on the mid of my tongue. It's very like spice driven, right?
It's complex. I see why you were excited about this one. I see why it won awards, honestly, because there's a lot going on. There's a lot of different aromas on the nose, especially super sweet on the tongue at first, and then it really hits you with oak and spice on the finish, right?
Right.
I'm not sure what I'm tasting on the spice on the finish, but it's definitely there. It's definitely a spicy meatball down the throat.
That's a spicy meatball!
I think you said it best you said complexed, and that to me defines this bottle of the price point and the taste of the bourbon. It's a complex $35 bottle that I think ranks up against any other $35 bottle. I mean, maybe outside of, true Buffalo Trace, but I mean, outside of that, like, dude, $35, just toss this on your shelf. It's very unique. It's different. You're not going to get like the sweet cherry dark fruit notes of a lot of other bourbons. This is definitely heavy oak, honey, sweet notes, but also spicy, right? It's fairly complex.
Yeah.
So I think this is something that I just like to leave our listeners with just don't overlook it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you got $35, it's worth at least giving it a shot to see if it fits your palate. If not, shoot me a message. Tell me I'm an idiot.
Yeah, no, please do.
Yeah.
We want to hear from you, honestly. And I love spicy bourbons. I like this one a lot. And I think the absence of cherry, right? You don't get really any notes of cherry.
No.
You get notes of fruit, but again, it's a different aroma,
Banana
different
bread's
taste.
great.
Yeah, banana bread. So it's really unique, really different. I guess it's very Tennessee whiskey.
E5 scale. How about it, Ryan?
Jack Daniels, as we've learned, they think very highly of themselves. So, it almost makes me want to put them in their place and call them the budget blend, right? Like, I just like, who do you think you are? Call yourself a bourbon when you are a bourbon, right? So that annoys me. So I almost want to like put them in their place and say you're a budget blend.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to get your take on this, man. Why don't you sell me on it? Like, is this a budget blend? I think I would lean there because of the price point, right? You can get this. You said you could get this bottle for under 40.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, sometimes you get it for like 30.
Yeah.
Again, the 7.5, that one's a leader. But
it feels like it fits that bill for me. Like you can mix with it easily, but you could also pour it too if you wanted to, and it's a nice little pour here and there. If you want something a little different, again, some of the notes are pretty unique with this bourbon, which is really fun. But it's not going to impress your guests. I don't know if it quite meets the criteria for a Saturday night sipper. It's just not quite there for me. Definitely not a precious pour. So I guess it would be between a dram and a blend, and I could see you going either way with that. Daily dram, budget blend. What is Zika thinking?
Oof,
you only have one.
Two tough choices, and I can't really sell you in on either, if I'm being honest, and I wouldn't want to. Right? It's subjective. It's your opinion.
No, stop riding the fence, you bastard.
Listen,
I don't think I've ever called anyone a bastard.
Well. It isn't Michael Scott, you old bastard.
Well, I never thought I'd see your face around these parts, you old bastard.
Well, I did show my face around these parts, you old bastard.
Why, you're some sort of wise guy, huh?
I most certainly am.
Oh,
Okay. Ollie's back.
No riding the fence, Zika.
I was actually going to come in and say it was a daily dram. I was leaning towards budget blend, but when I think of JD Bonded, I think of two things. I think of the notes on it remind me of almost a dessert bourbon, and Monday through Friday, I'm like grinding, not eating a lot of sweets, not eating the greasy pizza, but I'm indulging on the weekends, right? And I look at this bourbon as like kind of like a sweet treat, like your Lindt chocolates that your wife gives me in the boatloads.
Yeah,
I might grab one like almost every night, every other, but just one. You know what I mean? And this to me is like, if I continue to do that, it's like I might get burnt out a little bit. It's kind of like fast food. You never want to get the same thing back-to-back nights. You always kind of want to switch it up, at least from my opinion. And I don't eat a ton of fast food, but when I do, it's like if I have Taco Bell one night, I might go to like, okay, let's be honest. I always get Panda if I do. I could have back-to-back Panda nights. But if I switch it up, you're not going, if they're next to each other, you're not going to get the same thing 2 nights in a row.
We're learning so much about you here at the end of the pod.
But with Bonded, I don't think I could go back to back to back. It's just not my profile, right? It's very good.
Yeah.
But to me, it's more of a dessert. It's very sweet. It's very forward. So for that case, being made, then I will go with budget blend.
Yeah. And I almost feel bad because I feel like Jack number 7 would obviously be a budget blend, right?
Right.
I don't think we'd make much of a case for any of the other categories on the E5 scale for Jack number 7. So I almost feel bad because Jack Bonded is a step up, and there is a lot going on. And you talked about the dessert bourbon, and I totally get that. Like we were talking about banana bread, right? It's like sipping on a spicy
latte
flavors of banana. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. It's really cool.
It is. Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a little too different for me to say right now. I want this every day. And also, you pompous assholes, Jack Daniels. Now that I know your history, like, bro, like,
you bastards.
I can't support you daily. I mean, this is fine. This is good. Don't get me wrong. I like this. But I can't support you daily. I'm not going to buy this in boxes, right? It's not knocking my socks off to that level. So I think this is a budget blend. And I'm a little bit disappointed because, I think it's very similar to, like, I think I would put this bottle in the class of Wild Turkey 101 in terms of what we've covered so far.
Perfect.
I would take Wild Turkey over it.
Yeah. Why?
Wild Turkey it gave me more of that knock your socks off feeling. Like for me, Wild Turkey is more of a daily dram than JD Bonded. And I just think it's my palate, right? I'm learning that. Like, there's just something about Wild Turkey that spoke to me more.
I actually don't mind if I'm like starting off the night and I know I'm going to be getting after it a little bit. Beer and a bump. I love going to a bar that has like a special on a beer and a bump for like $5 or whatever. And I usually get Jack Daniels just as a quick shooter and then get a little Miller Lite on the side.
Wait, a beer and a bump?
You never heard of this?
Is that like a Midwest thing? Because for me, it's like, is that a beer and like a line of cocaine or something? Like, what are we talking about?
No.
I'm from the East Coast, man. We don't talk like this.
Beer and a bump. So we're talking, so typically it's like always what they're trying to get rid of, right? Or it's like a cheap beer and a cheap shot. It's like a homeless guy, what he would order if he had, scraped some pennies together.
It's like Jack number 7.
Exactly. So understand that this is a step up from number 7. I don't think I would ever buy Jack Daniel's number 7 off the shelf, even as a mixer. Like, just not my vibe. This has got a little bit, it's just the body's a little bit more for me, and the characteristics, it's just a little bit more, has a little bit more depth to it, I think. And so that's why I would go with this as a budget blend. Again, I could sip it like we're doing tonight, or create a mixed drink like Manhattans are my go-to right now, or old fashioned. This would actually be really good. I make my old fashions with actually brown sugar hot tip from Q Stew, my boy ex-bartender, and he mentioned that. So now I make all my old fashions with brown sugar, and then instead of like simple syrup, like regular sugar cube. This would be a fantastic bourbon for that. You can check it out on our website. I actually got my cocktail recipes on there too. But anyway, I would definitely go Jack Daniel's Bonded in the budget blend, widely available, easy to mix, and very enticing for bang for your buck type experience.
Yeah. As somebody who would not probably buy this bottle before the pod, I was hoping it would knock my socks off a little bit more than it did. But
yeah,
drinking banana bread in a glass is pretty fucking cool. All right. Thanks as always. We do love and appreciate you all for tuning in to the Bourbon Playbook. Until next time, stay curious, keep pouring, and let's just hope Mike doesn't try to convince us that Jack, a.k.a. Jasper Daniels, Bonded, is, quote, just another Tennessee whiskey. Spoiler alert, it's not.
And hey, Jack Daniel's Bonded, bold enough to remind us why bourbon is the king, and smooth enough to pair perfectly with one of Ryan's Vikings articles.
Thanks, buddy.
Honestly, Ryan, even when the Vikings are breaking hearts, your words just somehow make it seem like poetry.
My man.
Here's to your talent, my glass, and maybe, just maybe, a better 2025 season ahead.
Losing. Awful.
That's all you need to hear.
Cheers, Skull Nation.
Cheers.
Tennessee whiskey.